Hello and welcome to Washington Exec's video series. I'm Amanda Ziadeh with Washington Exec, and joining me today is Ian Thompson. He's Vice President of Federal Civilian for Software AG Government Solutions. Thank you so much for joining me today, Ian.
Sure.
All right, so Software AG provides an enterprise architecture management platform known as Alphabet, which is a collaborative platform that helps users understand their current IT landscape, what IT assets they have, and so on. And there's a time to value aspect of Alphabet as well, and that's what we're here to talk about today a little bit. So, Ian, my first question for you is, what are the current objectives driving federal government agencies to organize and understand their application portfolios?
That's a good question. Yeah, there's in the federal space, there's really two main forces that are driving C-level executives to evaluate their application portfolios. The first one is mandate, and the second one is mission. And so I'll start with mandate. And without question, the C-suite is feeling compelled to more regularly assess their IT apps and investments because there's been two top-down mandates from OMB, the White House, and legislation that are forcing IT executives to do some reporting on a annual basis, et cetera. So FITARA legislation, which came down in 2014, forced executives in the federal space to take a comprehensive inventory of their IT assets. And it has evolved since 2014. It now includes the review of software portfolios and technologies inside those software portfolios, as well as the impact of technologies on cybersecurity profiles at the agency level. So FITARA hasn't really stood still. It's kind of evolved as the IT landscape has evolved and incorporates some other things. The second mandate is TBM, or Technology Business Management, and that's a technology that evolved from the commercial side, and it's really it's a taxonomy or a common way to talk about IT technology, and a mandate came down from OMB, prompting executives across all the agencies to do a reckoning of their IT spending and the accountability of that IT spend on the success of investments they've made in IT. So that's been the second big mandate. Everyone has to be using TBM by 2021. And so that's driving a lot of executives to assess the application IT portfolio that they have at their agency. So that's really the mandate side of the forces that are driving executives. These two mandates are really catalysts also that led many agencies toward initiating and discovering the value of application rationalization strategies within their own IT portfolios. And so that's where I was going to talk a little bit about mission focus as being like an equally compelling motivation for our federal executives to rationalize their applications and really seek to deliver value in this area as quickly as possible. So as a lot of us know, many of the mission-driven initiatives are requiring IT transformation across agencies. And so there's a lot of that going on across the federal government. And it's driving some really hard decisions around IT prioritization, investment, and divestment for these different agency executives. And what we're seeing happening more is business leaders inside the agencies are partnering with IT to more effectively deliver the capabilities that they need within the budget constraints that the agency has. And as you and I know, like even in our world today, here we are on Zoom doing a video interview, and even more so within federal government. IT is intersecting with business capability. And so that's really what's driving this, driving IT to be more of a business partner with the agency business leaders. And application rationalization is at the heart of that strategic synchronization that is happening between business leaders and IT. Because if you have a large IT portfolio, many of these IT portfolios that our IT executives are managing are in excess of $1 billion, and there can often be 5 or more different applications that support a similar business capability across the organization. And so the agency executives really have a dire need for making data-driven decision-making around these capabilities and synchronizing the strategy with the IT investments that either they have or that they need to make across their portfolios. And if they're not using a data-driven, model for making those decisions, it just adds an element of risk to what IT executives are faced with as they try to prioritize which applications should they invest in, or which applications should they maybe buy, or which applications should they mothball in support of the business.
So how have successful federal agencies started?
Well, they getting started is really the key. There's a couple of big challenges that I think federal agencies are facing, and early in the process of getting started to develop an application rationalization capability, one of the key things that we see is you really have to define your governance and your requirements and any kind of key performance thresholds, and that's a real challenge. And one of the reasons it's a challenge is because you may not really out of the gates know exactly what those thresholds are and what your requirements are going to be. But we certainly can help customers with that. We have, a lot of the common use cases for federal CIOs and executives out there that we've seen our customers want to prioritize. But if you do define your governance and your requirements ahead of time, agencies can enjoy, very rapid time to value in managing complex IT architectures and managing their portfolios, because with some sort of guardrails around governance and requirements, it's the most effective approach to populating any kind of data repository with information about your application portfolio. It also helps you establish processes and workflows that will help the agency keep that data current. And the good news is, outside in our federal ecosystem, there have been a number of different sort of standards that will help agencies to address and establish this governance in these frameworks. One is FEAF, which is the Federal Enterprise Architecture Framework. And there's recently been a new release of that. And the second one is TBM, which I talked a little bit about, Technology Business Management, which is a taxonomy to help you categorize your applications. And it's an important to address this challenge that I think the agencies are going to face. It's a way that they can normalize how they talk about their environments, and it can really improve accuracy in reporting and data accuracy. So just kind of stepping back in the very early phases of establishing this capability and establishing, governance and requirements is a really important big step. The second big challenge that they face is the efficiency and accuracy of gathering this IT data. So for many agencies, a lot of this data exists in spreadsheets or in other systems of record, and it's not uncommon for agencies to go out and make lengthy data calls out to their business organizations about the application portfolio. And then it's very time consuming to kind of gather and collate all that data across the agency. And it's not uncommon for that data to be out of date by the time it reaches the executive who's faced with making decisions. And even more common is the questions or the challenges that executive is trying to answer. They didn't ask that for that information in the data call. And so now it's like, well, what about this piece of information? Well, we didn't go and get that piece of information. So this is a huge challenge. None of the data is static. As I mentioned, it can go out of date fairly quickly. And these agencies have billion-dollar portfolios where underlying technologies are constantly evolving. So that's a good example of at a macro level what our executives are faced with from a challenge capability. They really need to be able to dynamically query this data, visualize this data, and adapt and manage to change across their agency. And in these, when the information is static, it makes decision making very, very difficult. So just to summarize, in essence, rationalizing the application portfolios in near real time is really what they need. But without a good backbone of governance and efficient data gathering, it can be really, really hard to make push risk out of your decision-making process.
So talking about these challenges when federal agencies start with the rationalization process, what resources are then available to help them?
Well, there's some great resources. First of all, I would recommend, to folks out there, contractors, government employees, be the champion inside the agency you support. There's a great time to value and a great return on investment for your agency in developing this capability right now. And you can be the hero that your CXOs need to help them make these difficult decisions. Second thing I would just bring up is look for FedRAMP Cloud authorized solutions that have quick start implementations specific to federal executive stakeholders. And the reason that I bring this up is it can really dramatically shorten the ATO or authority to operate process for going live with app rationalization capability inside the agency, dramatically shorten the time. So when we talk to time to value, that's a real critical thing. And then finally, there's something called the App Rationalization Playbook. It's by the Cloud and Infrastructure Community of Practice. It's an independent entity out there. I might recommend pulling that playbook down, going through that, and leveraging that to bring this capability to fruition as quickly as possible, leveraging some of those big best practices. And go see some demos of some of the solutions out there, like Software AG's Alphabet solution.
All right. Wonderful. Well, thanks so much, Ian.
Thanks a lot.